What we don't do is just go to the owner with a problem. We also go with some options.
Solving problems for folks is the fastest way, I think, to being a great resource and prove value.
You know, you can really develop all kinds of skills that are going to serve you well as you grow.
Welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining us today on this Real MF'ers series. I'm excited to introduce you guys to our guest. She's someone we worked with closely here, and I think has got a great story and is going to be awesome to help. Michelle Bonam with Earthbound Construction is the owner and founder. And welcome, Michelle. Thanks for joining us.
I thank you, Scott, for having me. I'm pleased to be here.
Can you spend maybe a couple of minutes and just tell everybody a little bit about yourself, how you got into construction, the type of work Earthbound does, where you're at today and what you're doing, and kind of go from there, and we'll just jump right in.
So Earthbound Construction is a site preparation company. I started Earthbound almost 4 years ago. So we're a little over 3.5 years old. We'll be 4 at the end of June. So what a site preparation company does is basically prepare the site for any construction. You know, so sometimes sites will be picked and they'll have trees still on them, or sometimes there's a parking lot or a building that needs to be demoed. So we just go in and we clear the site, and we'll install any underground utilities, put in all the erosion and sediment control, and then we'll build the earth foundations that will support any hardscapes that have to go up. So the building, the parking lot, the sidewalk. And how I got into that, well, let's see. When I was in corporate America, I got into project management. And I thought I found heaven because it was super cool. I got to build things. Every construction opportunity was a different venture. You know, you get to work with different people, different plants. And I thought, wow, it's always new and always exciting. And I thought that I was going to do that for the rest of my career, but somehow I ended up in HR and spent the second half of my career in HR. But then when I moved to Georgia, you know, I was kind of tired of corporate America, and I took a little time to try to figure out what I wanted to do next, and realized I wanted to get back to my first passion, but that I didn't want to work in corporate America again. So that meant I needed to start a company that did that work. And I picked site preparation because, well, you know, if you're going to start a company, you want to take advantage of any resources that you have around you. And my hubby does dirt. So he has had companies in the past and sold them, and he thought he was going to retire. And I convinced him that, nope, he was going to go into business with me.
Yeah. I got a dream and you're part of it. So let's go. You're going to come one way or another.
That was exactly it. The first year he used to spend reminding me that he was supposed to be retired and fishing. And I'm like, you don't sit still long enough for that. So,
well, like anybody working at a company, do they have a good, healthy fear of HR? Even though you're his significant other, do he also have that fear from an HR perspective?
Not at all. Not at all. I try, you know, it doesn't stick at all. He's like, I know the boss personally.
I remember when I was in corporate America, if there was a call with HR on it, I always was a little bit, you always like, oh man, is this the day that I'm going to be on the wrong HR call, you know?
Well, a lot of people feel that way.
Well, how did you, you know, your husband's in dirt work and excavation, you know, there's a lot of different site work and site prep. I mean, demoing a site is one thing, building a pad is another, and then putting underground is a whole nother different set of skills. So can you talk about the evolution of how you might have went through those phases just in the site work side?
The thought process was more about, I knew that I was going to be the person who was going to run the back office. I was going to investigate deals, look at the deals, put proposals together, you know, run the office. I knew I was not going to be in the field because while I had done project management, it was basically directing the work that needs to get done. So I knew I had to have someone in the field who knew what great looked like. because if you're going to be successful in the business, you have to turn out a good product. Your reputation is everything. People check references. They're going to want to know how you did on your last project. Having repeat relationships with GCs is going to speak a lot. And since I didn't know how to actually do the construction in the field, I needed to leverage those skills. So that was one part of it. And then the second thing is really looking at the market here in Georgia. And Georgia has, a backlog of construction and some very significant projects, from roadway projects to airport projects, and not just, Hartsfield-Jackson, but there's also a lot of more commuter and business airports around here that are also undergoing expansion, and the Beltway, and we've got industry moving in. And so there was just so much construction going on, and Georgia actually has quite a lot of virgin land that people want to build on. So it just seemed obvious that site work was going to be the way to go. And at first, I really tried to do the site work and just do the earthwork portion of it, demoing like asphalt and stuff like that. And I quickly learned that people don't want to parse out the contract that way. They want one person who's going to be responsible for all of the site work. So even if I wasn't doing all of the work, I quickly learned that I needed to include it all in. So for instance, I said I do the erosion and sediment control. Well, I sub out the erosion and sediment control because there are plenty of companies that, they do that at scale. And so they're much faster. Can my guys do it? Yes, but these guys are much faster and much more cost effective getting it done. So I sub that out. Now we'll put in all of the detention ponds, and we actually clear the area for them to put it in, but they'll go in and they'll put in a silt fence and bring stuff in. Same with the site utilities. For the site utilities, you really need a lot of experience, and you need to have a utility manager on site. So you gotta have a lot of pipe work, and that's a lot more specialty equipment. And so I sub it out. So what I've been looking to do, and again, reputation is everything, so it takes a little while to get some traction in this area, but identifying other subs who just do the utility work, who I can sub that work out to. So I started with really understanding what the GCs are looking for so that I could put an attractive package together for them. And then I started finding people who could do the components that I don't do.
If your average contractor said, you know what, I'm already here doing the site work, now I can do the silt fencing, or I can do the piping, I'm gonna put it in the ground, why would I give up that $200,000 portion of that contract to a sub? You've clearly thought through that, made a decision, and know that it's the best choice, at least for you, to sub that out. But I think a lot of folks would think $1 of revenue on a contract is $1 of revenue. Mm-hmm. I glean the fact that you realize that that's not necessarily the case. How do you come about that decision, and why? Because I think that your perspective there is so golden, that every dollar is not the same. Can you help explain why you don't want to do every dollar that you might have, even if your contract, self-performing, everything is not profitable?
The reason is in construction, you make money. How you really make money is speed. You want to get in and get out as fast as possible, right? And so to do different jobs, you need different equipment. So first of all, that means you're going to have to own the equipment or rent the equipment. You're going to have to maintain the equipment. And then to make money at it, you're going to need people who can get in and do it fast and then get out. And if you're going to have people who do that job, that means you're going to have a lot of jobs that require that to get done so that you can bring in a lot of revenue on that. And so when I look at it, there's specific equipment that I would need for erosion and sediment control. There's specific equipment that I would need to lay pipe, things that I don't need to do the earthwork. So I didn't want to have to own all of that equipment. And I didn't want to have to ensure that I had enough work to keep all of the various skill sets productive, right? And so every dollar is not a good dollar if it costs you more to get that dollar, right? Or if by the time you get the work done, you only have pennies on the dollar left, right? And so that's kind of what I looked at is, like I said, I can do the erosion and sediment control, but it would take me longer to do it. I would make less money on it than subbing it out to someone else who does it at scale. And so they're actually cheaper. It actually costs me less to sub the work out to them than it would if I tried to self-perform. And that's what you really have to look at.
Man, that is such gold information. And I hope everyone really heard that. I want to read it. Like speed, efficiency, and performance are as profitable as price, maybe more profitable.
Exactly.
And hearing you say that, I want everyone that's listening to this to pull that apart. And it's not just in site work. You could extrapolate exactly what Michelle just said across every single scope of work in any trade.
Exactly.
It's so valuable. And that's before we even get into just the capital requirements to get into the business, let alone the revenue you need to maintain those capital requirements and when do you break even. And just, getting out there and doing what you do best, subbing out the rest of what everyone else does best.
You can't be all things to everyone, so find out what you're really good at and then do that. And that's where you're going to make the most money.
That's an easy thing to say, but it's not easy for people to do. So I really commend you on that. That's not a normal skill to have, whether it's construction or in anything, to have that perspective. That's really very mature and smart of you.
Well, I'm a very mature person.
Yes. I like to think I'm mature and immature, but that thought process you have is certainly one that's going to turn into a lot of money and more profitability. And a lot less stress. You're de-risking your business as well, while still being profitable.
Yes.
Culture-wise, so, corporate America talks about culture all the time, employees and culture, and some are great at it, some aren't. Most corporate America is really good at talking about it. Now, they're not all good at following through with it. You have an interesting background and perspective being in corporate America and in HR. How have you taken those skills and experiences and brought them into your construction business?
I'd love to say that I leveraged all of those skills and I just hit this out the ballpark, that this was just a great thing. And what I would say is I'm doing some things pretty good and some things I'm not,
Human.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. I just making sure.
Exactly. The thing that I feel like I've done a good job at is we're like a family. We value everyone who works for Earthbound. I worry about everyone who works for Earthbound. When I say my prayers at night, I pray for my Earthbound family. That is definitely one of the things that is part of it. And so treating everybody like they're part of the family and having everybody feel that they're cared about by the company, that's something that I think I'm doing a good job at. We did safety training and brought everybody in, and I participated in the training with everyone. We all got our OSHA 10 cards together.
That's awesome.
We do an annual getting together at Christmas time and, passing out, bonuses for everyone so that everyone participates in the company doing well. But we're still a small company, so some of the things we haven't been able to do that I really want to get into do is like having community service days. Where we go out and we do little projects or, help feed the homeless or, package food. So there's this ton of stuff that you can do in that area. But right now, I feel like we're still in that scrappy stage.
Well, it's good. I think it's important. It goes a long way. You're just the mere fact that it's a thought that you have and you execute on some of that. Of course, you never execute on everything you want to execute on, but the fact that you're there, it really goes a long way with your team and your employees, and I think they recognize that.
Hope so.
It's good when you start migrating that into the community too, because then it makes people feel good. When you do things that are for others, it really is the genuine, at least my opinion, it is the genuine source of happiness. It doesn't come from getting it from yourself.
I agree. You have to spread the wealth and you have to help others too.
So transitioning to one topic I want to ask you about, you're a woman. It's a woman-owned business in what's predominantly a male-dominated construction world. Talk about that a little bit. How do you use it as an advantage? Do you find it as a disadvantage?
It's funny. It is very much a male-dominated industry, and I will say the first big contract that I got. This is how male-centric it is. The first big contract that I got, they were more concerned with the people working for me than they cared about me.
Wanted to make sure you weren't going to come out on the job site yourself.
They wanted to have confidence in who was going to be out in the field and on the excavator. And they did less background checking on me than they did on the people in the field, Yet when that project started, I was the one that they interfaced with for everything. I showed up at all the project meetings. I was the one who processed and priced all the change orders, and I was the one who basically caught them on BS. I have been known to literally say this to people: is it because I have boobs? And they look at me and they go, what? And I go, is that why you think I care about what you're telling me? Is that why you think I'm more sympathetic? This is not something that you would tell me if I didn't have boobs. So why are you telling me? Because I don't care either. It's definitely a reputation industry and a relationship industry, because even people I'm engaging for the first time in contracts now, I don't feel like I go through that. Nobody's asking about who's out in the field anymore. I just show up by myself and I'm like, okay, let's talk about this contract. This is not going to work for me, and it's not a problem. But getting through that first contract was sort of my journey.
It's good. It's really interesting perspective too. I come from a sales background where you'd be in a hospital setting and you compete with all kinds of sales folks, right? And physicians, maybe male or female, but the sales reps were there was a lot of good mix of male and female. But I can tell you what, and I always appreciate it, a strong woman is going to blow the doors off of your average, better than average man all day long and every day. And they were always the ones that I was like, I got to watch that person there. If you are asleep for 1 second, that's the one that's going to always have folks' attention, gets things done, commands the room, always in a great way. I can see exactly what you're talking about. Well,
and I'll also say that the industry as a whole is really recognizing the fact that they're male dominated and that they need to be more diverse. Yes. And so a lot of the municipalities and the government have established various programs that allow you to become woman-owned certified or female or minority certified. And because the industry is paying more attention to that, and the federal government being one of them, they'll say you need to have, 5% female participation for this project. And so that helps, and one of the things that I did do in my first year, probably first 18 months, is I did take the time to try to make sure that I got every certification I could get.
Smart. Customers of yours are going to gravitate towards performance first, yes, and then execution. And then, if they have to deal with from an owner or from FEMA a certain requirement or percentage, and you can help fulfill that, that's just a great tool to get in. It's no different than being licensed or certified or
exactly.
Other things that you can give. Your whole team doesn't necessarily have to be OSHA certified, but you know what? If you can say your whole team is OSHA certified, it's a great benefit to you, not to mention the safety risks and everything else that are great. But those are things that are smart to do, and it separates you from everyone. It shows that you have the effort, the energy to put forth in, and then it also backs up the other things. It's very similar to you can be great in the field and be amazing. And if you don't have someone in your back office that knows how to turn paperwork in, right, it's like you can't do a government contract. You can't do a lot of contracts, but you definitely can't do the administrative work on a government contract, even though the work is great.
Yes, because you're right. They are paper intensive. I mean, you're right on all accounts. I mean, performance is the name of the game. Performance, you have to have the right pricing, and the other things are just icing on the cake because you help them achieve something that they're trying to achieve also.
You know what you did and said there? It's performance is important, which I agree with you. Pricing. And pricing doesn't mean the cheapest.
No.
Pricing means it's a fair price that you can execute and deliver on from a performance perspective. That's what I believe.
Yes.
And I think too often contractors get stuck in that quagmire where they're either asked for a discount and they give it, or they feel like they have to be the low bid, and the lowest bid or the cheapest is what's going to be an advantage to them to get it. But you know what? If you take something at such a low cost, even if you have to do the work at a higher cost than someone else, the cost that it is for you to do it is the cost that it is for you to do it, to perform. You need to stick to that, I always say, because, again, performance is the key.
I'm glad you said that because the people, the GCs that I've been working with, I'm rarely the lowest cost. But what they do know is that I've read the specs, and that whatever's in the specs, it's in my number. I'm not going to come back to them later and say, that wasn't in my number, that wasn't in my number. They know that I'm going to be tight with my paperwork. They know that I have, like I said, read the specifications, and that I'm going to be on top of the change orders and the schedule. And so they know they're getting other things also when they get Earthbound.
You're making their life easier. You're not going to be a headache.
Maybe, but no more than they are.
Right. You're not going to be a headache over something that should be done. If there's something that goes on, you can be a headache, but you're not going to be initiating a headache because of initial stuff.
Exactly.
All right. So a couple quick questions for you. If you're a young woman out there starting their career, why would you tell them, or would you tell them, or promote construction to them?
There is a tremendous amount of opportunity in construction. I have always enjoyed it. And because with construction, you get the satisfaction of seeing something being built or being a part of something being constructed that other people are going to use and get value out of it. I mean, like this monument almost, and you get to go from project to project. And for me, that's a very fulfilling feeling, right? And there's a lot of jobs in construction. I mean, so there's not just the being out in the field. There's anything from surveying to design to project management. And so there's a tremendous amount of opportunity. There's estimating, scheduling, there's all sorts of jobs that are there. And so if you have a career in construction, you can really grow and just develop all kinds of skills that are going to serve you well as you grow. It is still a male-dominated industry, but just like anything else, if you're passionate about something, that passion always comes through, and women can be successful in male-dominated industries.
I mean, if it's hard because it happens to be a male-dominated industry, it's hard until it's not. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I would make a strong venture to guess that you don't think construction's hard anymore. I don't. And, and there's quite a few women in construction groups that you can join. And so there's a lot of camaraderie there. And if you don't know something, somebody there knows or will be able to get you in touch with someone. And so there's a tremendous amount of networking that is available because all women want more women in construction. It's funny because this may have nothing to do with construction, but something I do believe in. The thing that might have been hardest for you as your barrier to entry, i.e. being a woman going into construction, is now really probably one of your better assets.
I absolutely feel that way. Even starting out the business, I knew that, nobody knew who Earthbound was. And so you'd have to build this reputation, and, getting those first few jobs is always the hardest thing to do. But going in, I never felt like I was at a disadvantage being a woman in construction. I went in thinking, wow, this is a great advantage being a woman in construction, because there aren't a lot of me.
You're going to be memorable. People are going to remember who you are. I mean, half the battle is just someone remembering who you are.
Exactly.
I have 3 quick questions for you that I think your perspective on. The first one is, what is the one thing that you believe determines a contractor's success or failure when they jump into it?
Skill and tenacity. You have to be able to do a good job, And then you have to be willing to stick with it, because it's not just going to be an easy walk. You sort of have to earn your at-bats.
What is the one thing you wish you heard early in your career? If you thought of yourself back in the very beginning, what is the one thing you wish you were told?
Know what you're good at and what you enjoy doing, and follow that. Don't try to do a job or pick something because you think it's the thing you should do. Go do what you enjoy doing and what you're good at doing, because if you do something that you're really passionate about and that you enjoy doing, you're going to shine, and people are going to see that and they're going to gravitate towards you. Everybody wants to be around somebody who's doing something that they enjoy doing. People don't want to be around somebody who's going through the motions.
So true. That's really, before I ask you this last question, I'm going to make a comment on something you just said. People, particularly in the first interaction with someone, they're not really hearing as much as what you say as they are reading your body language. How confident are you? What vibe, really just what energy and vibe do they feel from the interaction with you?
Yeah.
More than what you're actually saying to them. And it's that feeling that they get in talking to you that they remember more than what you even said.
You're right. Passion bleeds through.
It does. And then if you have that passion and you're memorable, and then you deliver on top of that, Now you're not forgettable.
I agree.
So do you have a certain piece of wisdom or something that you make sure each one of your clients knows about you when you talk to them, either initially for sure or ongoing?
What I want all my clients to take away from any experience with Earthbound is that we are there to help them solve problems, not just to execute against the contract, but, nothing ever goes as expected. Let me tell you, especially in the dirt business, nothing ever goes as expected. When you start digging in the ground, you don't really know what you're going to find. And on literally every job we've had, we have found some things that have caused problems. But what we don't do is just go to the owner with a problem. We also go with some options. Here's some different things that you can do. Here are some ways that you can address this, and some of them cost more than others. And sometimes I'll be like, well, you could pay me to do that. Or this would save you a little bit of money if you let me do it this way, and I try to present options. What I want them to walk away from is not feeling like I'm just trying to gouge them for more money, but I'm trying to help form a partnership.
Solving problems for folks, making their job easier is the fastest way, I think, to being a great resource and prove value. I mean, there's no doubt about that, because everybody can walk the straight line when the weather's perfect, but how does it work when you start getting some variables, things you didn't plan for? That's the real true colors in someone.
Exactly.
Well, Michelle, I can't thank you enough. I've actually really, really, really enjoyed this conversation. I think you've shared some insights that we have not heard before from a great perspective and place. And I think there's some awesome take-home notes here for anyone that spends the time to listen to this. And I think our audience will really get some value out of that. Michelle, thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. And thank you to everyone out there who's viewing this.
If you liked what you just heard and you want to support the show, why not leave us a review? Reviews help more people find the show. And while you're at it, consider subscribing. It helps us out a lot. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you on the next one.